Hey guys, welcome and welcome back. Thank you to all the subscribers for supporting the channel. So today I'm super excited because we're going to be talking about the Celtic culture and the books that we're going to be reading on the Celts. And the Celts are people who I really didn't learn about when I was growing up in school. We didn't really talk about them much. Maybe we touched on it like once. But I find the Celts very interesting. And a lot of times people, when we talk about Celtic people, they think about Ireland. And the Celtic people actually stretched over a wide part of Europe. And all of these different cultures came to Ireland for different reasons, and we'll get into that in a minute. So first, I'm just going to share the books that we'll be reading. This is The Sailor Who Captured the Sea by Deborah Norse Latmore. This is Favorite Celtic Fairy Tales by Joseph Jacobs. This one is Horrible Histories, The Cutthroat Celts by Terry Deary. This one is The Irish Cinder Lad by Shirley Climo. This one is The Celts, What Do We Know About the Celts by Hazel Mary Martle. And this one is Hands-On History Celts. Dress, Eat Right, and Play Just Like the Celts. And this one is by Joe Fulman. So the Celts, who were they? Oftentimes, as I mentioned, modern day people will think of the Celtic people as the people of Ireland. But people don't really know exactly who the ancient Celts were. So long before the people of Ireland, it's said that people from Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent, possibly Mesopotamia, had come to Ireland and set up a civilization. But by the time the Celtic people, the modern Celtic people that we know of today, had come to Ireland, those people were gone. But what they left in their place were these giant stone megaliths and monuments. And throughout the centuries, so many different cultures and people came to Ireland. And so you have the Norse Vikings who came, you have the Britons, the Anglo-Saxons from Britain who came. You also have, I believe, some Scottish people. The Irish Celtic people traded frequently with Spain, so Spaniards would come. And also, as I mentioned before, there were Celtic people in mainland Europe, so from Germany and France. In France, they were called the Gauls. So those people also came, and there's also record of people coming all the way from Ukraine and Russia to Ireland. And so Ireland was this really hot spot. People wanted to be there. And so it was when as I understand, the Celtic people from Europe came to Ireland to establish a settlement there. That is now what we consider the Celtic people of Ireland today. And so a lot of them, came from France and Germany and other parts of Europe, such as Switzerland and I believe Austria as well. And so you're probably wondering, well, why did they want to go to Ireland so much? What was the big deal about Ireland? I don't know all of the history. However, in this book, The Sailor Who Captured the Sea, there is a story, and it's the very last story, called The Black Knight of Tintagel. And Tintagel was a city, a port down, I believe it's southwest Ireland. And this place was very popular, so popular that a giant castle was built there, and there was a very well-known king who lived in Tintagel. And so some people believe that the king of Tintagel may have been King Arthur. And so this is one reason that I really wanted to tell my daughter about the Celts and Celtic culture before we went into medieval history, because there is a lot of Arthurian legend woven in with Celtic culture. And according to Deborah Norris Lackmore, as well as other historians and other literary people, the Celts really started the whole medieval stories that we know today. The fairy tales that we know today come from the Celtic culture. And so, of course, I have to tell my daughter about that. And so, anyway, back to Tintagel. I got off on a bit of a tangent, but not only was Tintagel possibly the home of King Arthur, but it was a very important place where people traded. And the reason why it was an important place, perhaps you can tell by the name, Tintagel, they had a very important resource there, and it was worth its weight in gold to all people, and that was tin. And so the reason that people wanted tin was because when they mixed tin with other metals, it created bronze. And so they could make weapons and other fine, delicate things like jewelry, pins, bowls, shields, all kinds of things. And so there is still, I believe, a huge mining area for tin in Tintagel, and whoever was the chieftain of that area was very wealthy. And early on in Celtic history, there was not one king. There were many kings in Ireland, so you could call them chiefs, but it was kind of like they had a bunch of kings, and then they had one king who ruled them all, basically. No, they all worked together, but there was one king who was like the leader, and I believe that person, they would switch them out every so many years. But as history went on, the king who was like the main leader, they ended up getting into wars with other chieftains of Ireland, and then they got into wars with Britain and the Vikings and so on and so forth. And then eventually, from what I understand, the King of England became the one king of like the British Isles. And so I chose these two books because they are traditional Celtic fairy tales from what I understand. And yeah, I wanted to read these before delving into more maybe romanticized or magical fairy tales from medieval times. But after reading these, we will delve into something more like this, which is favorite medieval tales. This one is by Mary Pope Osborne. This is a picture of Merlin. He has Arthurian connections, and so we will be reading this one as well as The Sword in the Stone and possibly some other Arthurian legends. Now this one is Horrible Histories Cutthroat Celts by Terry Deary. I have not read this. I just browsed through it. So, just beware. If you're using this book for a third grader, you might want to pre-read. But it talks about how difficult life was in Celtic times and the different things they had to deal with. I thought this was interesting. It does have some recipes in it that you could try. It's like a mishmash of a lot of different things and a lot of history. And inside it does have some comics. And it also has cursive writing and print writing. And it has like a little section that looks like a diary. But I thought this would be a good book to at least read out of a little bit of this history, because not everything was so rosy with the Celts. And, it tells you what their life, a more accurate portrayal of their life. And another interesting thing is if you're into macabre history or mortuary history, and you could save this until, October time if you wanted to study Celts in October. We'll be doing it more towards the beginning of the year. But I learned recently that there is such a thing as the Irish vampires or the Celtic vampires. And so there are researchers who have found graves of what they call Celtic vampires or the vampires of Ireland, and these bodies were buried in such a peculiar way, and they had very special stones placed inside their mouth. And this is not common. Archaeologists and researchers have not found other burials, even in other places around the world, where they have seen burials quite like that. And they have been trying to figure out where the stones came from and why the stones were placed in the mouths of these people. And also, the bodies showed some peculiarities. They believe that after the person had passed away, the head was removed from the body, but still placed in the grave, but removed from the body. And so they're trying to figure out why the Celtic people or the people of Ireland would do this. And so this was happening during the medieval times, medieval ages. And there is a story of a woman who was dug up, and this was during medieval times. She was dug up. She was sent to a very well-known, very well-respected doctor in Austria to see if there was some sort of disease that she died from. And I won't go into the whole story, but it's really fascinating, and it even freaked the doctor out because her blood was still fresh. He said she did not seem like she had died. She still looked like she was alive. And so people of that time, they were very afraid of vampires and people coming back to life. Anyway, and so the next book is The Irish Cinder Lad. So this is definitely more of a third grade story. And every culture, it seems, has some sort of Cinderella story. And this is the Irish Cinderella, and it's actually the Irish Cinder Lad. So the main character is a boy in this story who fights off a dragon. And I had never heard this before. I thought this was an excellent book. And so it just talks about this boy and how he comes to fight this dragon. And he gets these magical boots. He also has to fight off a giant. And I just thought it was a really great fairy tale, something that can be, the beginning of our journey with medieval fairy tales. And then, of course, we actually have to talk about the Celts and who they were and what their culture was like. And I thought this book was great. And here is a timeline. And as I mentioned before, there were so many people coming and going from Ireland and trading and warring. And so this timeline I thought was really nice. And then inside, what I like is that it shows realistic pictures of artifacts that have been found, things that are in museums, and it gives you little snippets of information here and there, and also how they built their homes. And then the last book, it talks about, again, lots of little tidbits of information. I thought this was good about forts and houses. I'd like to show my daughter different landscapes of Ireland and have her build a fort or a home like Celtic people would be living in. And there's a lot of really nice crafts in here. My daughter loves doing crafts, and so I thought this was a really good book. This one is by Joe Fulman. We've done a couple of other books by this company. The cover's familiar, and so I think she'll really enjoy this one. One final thing that I wanted to say about the Celtic fairy tales. There were other Celtic fairy tales books out there, some of them that had very nice illustrations. One that comes to mind was called The Names Upon the Harp, and that's a collection of Irish fairy tales. But honestly, a lot of the fairy tale books that I saw, they included stories from these two books, and so I already have these, so that's why I'm not sharing them here. But if you're looking more for a picture book, you could try looking up Celtic fairy tale picture book. Again, The Names Upon the Harp looked like a nice one. And we're not doing a ton of books like we have in the past, so you notice I have a small stack. Two reasons for that. I didn't find a lot of Celtic books for children, so that's one thing. History books or picture books. And then the second thing is we're reading little chapter books more like this, so this is going to take us some more time than we did in the past, where we were reading picture books and that would go by quite quickly. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this book list. I hope that you can incorporate some of these books into your learning, and I really look forward to sharing more medieval books with you guys. See you next time.